Welcome to another 21 Hats Dashboard, brought to you by our sponsor, The Great Game of Business. I'm Loren Feldman, and I'm here with Gene Marks to talk about the things we think business owners should be following this week. Welcome, Gene.
Wait a second. Your sponsor? Tell us a little bit about The Great Game of Business.
The Great Game of Business, Gene, is a terrific organization based in Springfield, Missouri. They help businesses with open book management and with employee ownership. They have coaches, and they've got kind of a really strong cult-like following.
I love it. Well, congratulations on bringing them on as a sponsor for our segment. I think that's fantastic.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
They sound like a wonderful organization. Do they have a website, perhaps?
They do.
What would that be?
Greatgame.com.
Greatgame.com. I will check them out for sure. Thank you. They
have an annual event every September where people who practice open book management from around the world have been coming for years. I've lost track, but over the last 10, 12 years, I've probably been to 6 or 7 of them. And they just attract a really great group of entrepreneurs and business owners.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I will check out their website. That is great.
Please do.
Excellent to have them involved.
All right.
So,
welcome.
Yeah.
Moving along. As usual, you've been writing and talking about stuff that matters to business owners. I want to start with a piece you wrote for Entrepreneur about 3 reports you say business owners should run if they want to run their business better. What are those reports?
Well, there are a lot of reports that any business can run, if they want to do their thing. But, we're busy people, right? So I just wanted to make sure I limited it to just 3. So let me tell you what 3 reports I strongly recommend that you run in your business to really stay on top of it, okay? Number 1 is the flash.
Wait, before you do that,
yes.
You pointed out in your piece, and I think it's worth noting, that this is beyond your monthly financial statements, which you consider something of a postmortem that comes later, and it doesn't really help keep you on top of what's happening right now, correct?
Don't want to shit all over the monthly financial statement.
They're important.
By the time they come out, it's like stale news. It's good to look back at your monthly financials or even quarterly so you can see, trends or margins that your, issues or expenses that might be higher than last year or budget or whatever. It's all good. But I'm talking about day to day, like proactive numbers, like numbers you need to have at the tip of your fingers as you're running your business on a daily or a weekly basis, Got it. So one of them is called the flash report. The second report is called the pipeline report. And the third report is called the rolling cash forecast report. And I'll just very quickly will summarize. A flash report is something that you as a business, by the way, I'm only telling you this because this is what my best clients do. This isn't like I didn't create this out of thin air. So this is what they've taught me. A flash report is specific data about your business that you should have somebody compile for you either on a daily or a weekly basis. What is my cash today? What is my receivables? What is my payables? What is my year-to-date sales? What is my backlog? What are my open orders? Those are some of the common things that show up on a flash report. And you want to make sure it's also benchmarking against some prior period. So if you're looking at cash today, you should also have in your flash report, well, what was my cash say at the end of the year? Am I up or am I down? These are, an admin can compile this off of your different systems. And that way you have a pulse on some of the key numbers in your business on a daily or a weekly basis. Okay.
Which obviously will vary to some extent by industry, by specific business.
That is correct. And it shouldn't be hard to compile. They should be just the basic, organic numbers that you're using to run your business. So that's number 1. The pipeline report usually comes from your CRM system, your customer relationship management system, and is basically all of your pending deals, your pending sales. It'll include any quotes or proposals you have out there, but it will also include different types of pending opportunities before they even become an official quote or a proposal. And there on that pipeline report should be the amount of it, who's working on it, what was the last thing they did, what's the next thing they got going on, and what the probability is of that actually turning into a sale. And if you're managing your pipeline really well and you're on top of it, you really should be able to look out, 60 to 90 days and know what sales you have expecting to come in. which brings me to my last report, which is the rolling forecast cash report, or the rolling cash forecast report. And that is where, Loren, every month you project out what your cash is going to be 90 days from now. And the way you do that is you take your pipeline sales from your pipeline report, as well as maybe anything that's become a sale but hasn't actually been invoiced yet. So you get your arms around that. You multiply it times an estimated margin, and you figure out what your overhead's going to be, which isn't too tough, over the next 90 days. This is not a hard report to do, the forecast report. I'm only asking for 90 days. But I swear to God, Loren, my smartest clients, once they get in the groove of doing that once a month, they know in the future. They're looking ahead 90 days and projecting what their cash will be, which includes any unusual or extraordinary items, like maybe estimated taxes or some big supplier payments. At least they know what the future is, because my best clients are always looking ahead, So those are the 3 big reports I recommend to run your business.
None of this seems like rocket science,
Nope.
The way you describe it.
Nope.
And my guess would be that probably most business owners have some handle on this. They may not call it what you call it. No. No.
They just don't. I mean, my best clients do, but I can't tell you how many, clients and companies and readers I have that they don't get key numbers about. If I ask them, like, what are your receivables today, or what's your cash? They're not even really sure what it is. If I ask them what their pipeline of sales are, they're not really sure what that is. And if I say, okay, well, what's your cash going to be 90 days from now? Most of the business owners I talk to can't really tell me that. And it's not that hard to do. It's really not. And it'll change your life if you have those 3 reports in your business. If you really commit to running those reports, it will make a huge difference in how you're running your business.
I'm a little bit surprised. I mean, like I said, it's not like I thought everybody was doing this exactly the way you describe it and calling it the name that you call it. But I mean, I think most business owners know they have to know how much cash they have today and how much they might need next week or next payroll. No?
You're a business owner, right? Do you know what your cash is going to be 90 days from now?
I do. 0.
What? Join the club. That makes the calculation a lot easier.
No, I know what you mean, but I'm not a good example. I'm just getting started, and my business is somewhat limited.
Bullshit.
But you know what? I watch it carefully, and I have sponsors, and I have other revenue at this point, and I know what it's going to be, and I don't call it a flash report, and I don't have lots of things to look at, but I got a feel for where I'm going to be, and I know that I can pay my bills next month.
Okay, that's good. How about in 90 days? How about in 3 months from now?
Oh, I probably should do a little bit more.
Yeah, you should. It's a good practice to start getting into, and then as you grow your empire, Loren, you will be in that discipline to know, the future. And the future is all in forecasting sales and forecasting cash. That's how people run businesses that know what they're doing.
And you mentioned that you know this because of your best clients, but you're also a CPA.
Yeah.
You've probably been doing this for a long time.
I have, and I do it myself, but I bang my head against the wall to try and get my clients doing it as well. I'd say the biggest problem that a lot of businesses have is the forecast. They hear forecast and they think like they should be looking ahead 3 years from now. You know what I mean? Or they overcomplicate things, or they think it has to be too specific. It's really not hard to forecast what your overhead is going to be over 90 days. It's not hard to come up with an estimated margin for your services and products. And the hard thing is coming up with what you think your actual sales are going to be over the next 3 months. But that's actually not as hard as you think if you do a little bit of due diligence.
Well, especially if you, the way you described it in your piece, if you have a CRM and you can categorize your clients and your opportunities as being hot, warm, or cold.
Yep.
That should give you a pretty good sense of where you're going to be.
It's a start, by the way, but remember that there are also some numbers outside of your CRM. I mean, maybe you have closed deals that aren't in your CRM anymore, but they still haven't been sold yet. They're like in process. Or maybe you're the type of business that you get a deal and then it turns into a sale a week later. Do you know what I mean? So you have to take all those into consideration. But you've got a lot of sources. You've got prior periods. You've got your salespeople to talk to. You've got your open order book. So it takes a bit to figure out what your sales are going to be over the next 90 days because you have to get that from a few different sources. But once you get a process down, it's not as tough as you think. And then suddenly, once a month, you're able to take a step back and say, all right, I've got this much cash in the bank now. 90 days from now, I'm projected to have that much cash, which is good or bad. And I need to make some decisions around where that's going.
All right, next topic. You wrote a piece for the Philadelphia Inquirer in which, among other things, you wrote about how a lot of business owners don't realize that they have more options in terms of buying energy than they might realize. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So energy costs have gone up a lot over the past couple of years.
We just highlighted a story in the Morning Report last week about restaurants in Southern California whose gas bills have gone absolutely crazy. There was one example of somebody who I think paid $800 for gas a couple months ago and just got a bill for $8,000 for February.
It's crazy, and it's not just gas; it's electric as well. And I looked into the government's, the Bureau of Labor Statistics publishes all their numbers that go into the Producer Price Index. And you can find all this on the St. Louis Federal Reserve's website. It's an amazing resource of data. And I went back and although energy price, people like to look back a year over year. The past year, energy increases have plateaued, but I went back 2 years, to January of 2021. And, energy prices, whether it's utilities or gas, whatever, have increased anywhere from 50 to 75% during that 2-year period. I mean, it's right, just like you're reporting. So it's a big deal. I mean, talk about trying to project your overhead. So, I dug into this for the Philly Inquirer, and I was like, all right, well, what do we do to control this stuff? And there's more options than I think a lot of businesses really realize. So let me tell you what those options are. First of all, you absolutely should get an audit done of your facility. If you call up your local energy provider, in Philly, it's PECO, New York is Con Ed, wherever you're getting your power from, they will for free, because they're mandated to do it, they will for free send somebody out to your place of business who will walk around and give you an energy audit and tell you, you need insulation here, you need to, fix that, you need to repair that. That will give you a good idea from an efficiency standpoint. That's easy, okay? Number 2, you should certainly talk to your accountant about the Inflation Reduction Act, because there really are some incentives for businesses for buying electric vehicles in certain businesses and certain industries, for environmentally friendly products where they can get some good tax rebates. So that's all good. But there's 2 big things that I wrote about as part of this article. Number 1 is, if you live in a deregulated state, and many states are deregulated, and I got to Google and find out what percentage of states in this country are deregulated. I live in Philly, so Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware are deregulated states, which means you can buy your power from anywhere. Even if PECO is my energy company, my utility company, they just deliver the power from wherever I buy it from. So my advice to you, if you live in a deregulated state, Google to find out if you do, use a utility broker or consultant. They're all over the place. And if you go to a broker and say, hey, I run a small business and here, what are my options for buying energy? They will find for you lower cost energy providers, because there are people out there that are buying energy, whatever the hell that means. They're buying energy, and some of them are making bets. They buy it at different times or for different amounts, and they get it cheaper, and they pass those costs on to their customers. A good broker will find that for you and arrange for you to buy your power from somewhere else. So that's number 1. And then the second big thing that I learned when I wrote this piece is something called a demand response program, which is a federal program and all the states participate. And if you're of a certain size company, you should talk to your energy broker or to your utility company about a demand response program. And what that means is that you put in a generator in your business, and the generator, in many cases, can be paid for by your utility company. And the generator runs on natural gas or something relatively cheaper than what electricity is right now. It depends on where you are. But what it runs separately. The utility companies are asking their customers to go off the grid at different high times of usage, like during the summer or whatever. They'll say to you, tomorrow we're going to have a high rate of usage. can you please switch to your generator? And when your business switches to the generator, you have advance notice to do this. You get these like big credits from your utility company for your utility costs. So it's called a demand response program. Some businesses may not be eligible depending on their size or location, but it's something you need to look into. It could save you a lot of money.
Yeah, I was going to ask, the size thing is interesting. I mean, how big a business do you have to be for these steps to be worthwhile?
Really does depend. I will tell you that I spoke to a couple of companies. Each of them had more than 100 employees. Now, again, I cover small and mid-sized businesses. So, if you're listening to this and you've got 100 employees or 200 employees, you're very much so can be eligible for this. If you've got 10 employees, it may not make sense for you to do it, but that you got to talk to your broker or talk to your power company to see if it makes sense for you.
What size do you have to be for it to be worthwhile talking to a broker or consultant about getting
any size. So I don't care if you're a retail store or you're a restaurant. If you're in a deregulated area, you might be able to buy your power cheaper than what you're getting it for right now.
How about a virtual business like yours?
It depends if you're working from home. I mean, it's a different situation with me because everybody's working from their homes. They have their own utility bills, so it's not as big of an issue and not really worth the time. But you know what I found, Loren, is like utilities are like, healthcare, like there are ways to save on healthcare if you really do the work to figure out other alternatives, instead of just paying for Blue Cross, and that's the easiest way out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with utilities. Like it's so easy just to sign up with your utility company and pay their bill. But the reality is that you have other options if you want to spend some time. And before, like when utility costs weren't that much, I guess it's just you have other things on your list to do, but they become so much more expensive. It's now time to pay some attention to it.
All right, last topic. Last week, you wrote a piece for Forbes asking whether businesses should hire a CRM consultant to help them implement their CRM systems. Now, you happen to be a CRM consultant.
Yeah.
And you came to a stunning conclusion. Tell us what that conclusion was.
It depends. Maybe
That's not what you concluded.
I mean, no, what did I conclude? I think I concluded it depends. It's up to you.
You concluded that it's a good idea to hire a CRM consultant.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, well, first of all, I start out by saying it does depend. But look at Loren taking a swipe at let me tell you why I think it is a good idea, even though you don't have to pay as much as you think you have to. And you're right, by the way, if you're listening to this, that this is my business. I'm a CRM consultant, right? So take this with a grain of salt. But if you're going to implement a CRM, a customer relationship management system in your business, Salesforce, Zoho, Nimble, Insightly, Sugar, HubSpot, whatever the case is, right? I can tell you right now, none of these systems are that complicated. And I write about this in Forbes. I mean, no one's curing cancer here. Okay, you can learn it. You can go to classes, you can watch videos, you can read the materials, you can implement your own system. There's two reasons why I recommend using a consultant. Number one is the consultants, this is what they do for a living. So you do what you do and they do what they do, So I use the example of like, I don't mow, I in the past when I had a house, I didn't mow my own lawn because I'm a lazy piece of shit and I would rather nap and not do that. So I pay somebody to do it for me, It's the same thing with CRM. I mean, like if that's not your thing, you pay somebody to do it because that's what they do. And so that might be worthwhile. At the very least, even if you're just getting a small business CRM system and you're only paying $100 a month for it or whatever, I still think it's valuable to spend $1,000 with a consultant that is expert in that system just to give you some advice on how to set it up and what to do to point you in the right direction, Well,
that was the question I was going to ask. Is $1,000 a good typical estimate?
Yeah. I mean, we charge $175 an hour. I think that's in the mid range. People charge a little bit less. People in other areas charge a little bit more. So, if you spent, if you bought a block of time from us or for 4 or 5 hours, that way we could spend a little bit of time with you and say, okay, if you're going to get this system, make sure you do this, this, and this. Make sure you have these reports. Make sure you've configured it this way. And then hopefully there's a little bit of time left over in case you're spinning wheels. You can call us back up and, I have a question about this and we can answer it. And then you run with the ball on your own, So that's, even if you're a very small business, I think it's worthwhile having an expert just that has your back and can point you in the right direction. That was the point of the column. Did that not get through?
No, it absolutely got through. I just like to give you a hard time.
You do.
I have to say, I like to mow my lawn, so I do that. But I think the argument you make makes perfect sense. I have a podcast. I could learn how to, take care of the audio myself.
You have a producer, right?
And produce this.
Yeah.
I could do that, but I don't think it's the best use of my time, and I don't. And I pay someone to do it, and I think it makes even more sense with a CRM. And apart from what I've learned from you, which is that most businesses use a tiny percentage of the capability of their CRM. Right. The odds are you're going to pick up something from somebody who does this every day.
Yeah, there's no question. And, and at least they can point in. We have some clients that are fully DIY, and good for them. They know what they're doing. They're willing to spend the time. They're going to do it on their own. I think that's great. But I do try to make my pitch to say, hey, listen, buy a few hours. I'm not going to retire on this. Just buy a few hours of your time. So that way you're not, calling me back 6 months from now because you've painted yourself into a corner with your CRM. You know what I mean? And at least that way we can give you some advice and then go and do your thing, What
prompted you to write this? Have you been running into more DIY situations?
No, that's a really good question. So I write this column every other week for Forbes called On CRM. I think I started it when you were there, Loren.
Did?
Yeah. So the gist was to write about news in the CRM industry. And honestly, sometimes it's like a slow news week. There's so much news about CRM. And I want to stay on track. And I'm like, all right, well then, screw it. I'm going to write a piece like this. I actually am going to do a few more of that related pieces in the future of like, how much should you pay for a consultant and what should you get out of using a consultant? Because people do ask me these questions all the time. I'm like, I might as well put it on Forbes so it's out there, to give people answers.
Everybody's using a CRM. I think these are important questions. People do wonder about it.
Yeah. So, it's not, I'm not going to lead the number of, page views on Forbes when I write one of these things, but I do think it's, it's useful information for people that are considering getting, a CRM, and there are plenty of people doing that.
Definitely. Anything you're working on that we should look for in the coming week?
Yes. I'll tell you what I'm working on right now. First of all, I'm going to write for the Inquirer this week on, some tax changes that are going to cost small businesses that we need to be aware of, like research and development. There's been some changes in research and development expenses and depreciation that people need to know now so they can make their plans. I'm going to do that. For The Guardian, I'm going to write about the 4-day work week. We know The Guardian, right? They lean like to the left of Karl Marx, but I actually don't think that.
Well, they came out of the UK where the 4-day work week has been a big deal of late.
It has been. So that's going to be my start. But but this is the US, side of The Guardian. So I'm going to take a US slant on it, and spoiler alert, it ain't going to fly.
Well, you've said positive things about it in the past. Did you think it's something that smaller businesses could use as a recruiting tool?
Yeah, please, just let's talk about this next week, because the answer is yes. I am going to, it ain't going to fly in the US, but I do think business owners are shooting themselves in the foot if they don't consider doing it. They can still do it and make it work for their business. And I am going to write about that. And then, I've got a lot of, I got something I'm going to write for The Hill. I've got a couple of ideas in my mind. And then for the Chicago Daily Herald. Wait, who's that? One of the oldest newspapers.
Not the Sun-Times, the Tribune?
Not the Sun-Times, the Daily Herald. But I did interview a few local bankers in the Chicago area about getting an SBA loan. And I want to share some of the advice. And
interesting.
Yeah, it'd be good.
All right. Well, I will look forward to that conversation. Gene Marks is a CPA who writes weekly on small business for The Guardian, The Hill, The Philadelphia Inquirer, The Washington Times, The Chicago Daily Herald, Forbes, and Entrepreneur. You can also hear him on ABC Radio's Eye on the World with John Batchelor. Gene hosts 2 small business podcasts with Paychex Corporation and The Hartford. This episode was brought to you by The Great Game of Business. Gene, as always, this was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks to The Great Game of Business. This was a lot of fun, Loren. We will talk to you next week.
Sounds great. Take care.